Hey, everybody, I'm Sean Robinson,
I'm Carson Grubaugh. Welcome to Living the Line.
and today we're going to be talking about a very exciting book from a cartoonist who I have long admired, but is virtually untalked about, at least in the United States. Have you ever heard of Makoto Kobayashi?
Not the name, but I'm familiar with the book that you sent.
You
I
are?
got
Okay.
Sean every now and then. Sean sends me a book in the mail, and I open it up, and I'm like, "What the fuck is this? I didn't order this." And then I go, "Oh, Sean, obviously Sean sent this." So, you sent a copy of What's Michael, and this cat, What's Michael? I've seen this before, so I'm aware of this is like the most pornographic cover of all time, by the way. It's very uncomfortable cover that I'm holding up.
Just looking right at you, right into your eyes, found in media res,
Yeah.
in buttholial res.
I'm glad that there's no buttholio drawn though, because like that's a weird thing with people who love cats is they really like their little buttholes. I don't know if you're aware of that trend, like the little magnets and stickers about cat butts, but this cover got perilously close to that for me.
So this is an interesting one. I'm excited about talking about it and hearing what you actually thought. But it's interesting because it's definitely visually of its time. Like I think that somebody who's coming into it could probably identify, that was drawn in the early '80s. Uh, Makoto Kobayashi. I'm not sure about his popularity in Japan now. It's looking like the serializations that he's done. Um, I don't know if he's done anything fairly recently, but even Googling him is fairly difficult because A, there's a scientist named that in Japan who won a Nobel Prize, and B, there's
Damn him.
a right scientist, and then there's a mech designer who also became an anime director who made, like one of the real big OVAs, from the '80s, original video
Oh.
animations. Um, and so, if you look for like art of Makoto Kobayashi, you find a bunch of mech designs, and it's like the same person can't have done this, can they? But this dude is quite the cartoonist. He is
Yeah.
pretty amazing. This is one of the first Studio Proteus books, and this was done for Eclipse. Cat Urand, Cat. Urand writes the intro to it, and in my estimation, What's Michael really was too early in the U.S. market. It was a time when comics didn't have distribution, uh, real wide bookstore distribution or anything like that. You would think that this could have been a massive, massive seller had it sort of hit the market that we have now, where it's
Yeah.
possible to reach like a civilian audience.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it's a weird that that's one of their first releases because most of their other stuff seems really well chosen for the market at the time. Like Akira and some of the other ones that I've found that are like real sci-fi 7 issue, 8 issue arcs or something like that that work really well for the American market. This being a collection of very short stories focused on a cat seems kind of poorly timed for the 80s 90s comic market, but I think it, like, especially I have a lot of students who are really into Junji Ito, and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that he's done some cat stories as well, and I think this would be maybe due for a re-release
Right.
based on the success of that book, and just the way that the wider range of genres, and I think even like having a larger female readership now in comics, like you're just going to get more receptive to cute stories about cats.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, we're gonna maybe we should just go straight to the flip through because there's not a ton to
Yeah,
brief
yeah, yeah.
about beforehand. But I mean, you're gonna see immediately like the skill that he has as a cartoonist is quite extraordinary. Um, but let's take a look. So,
Yeah.
anybody who's picked up the Dark Horse releases of this that came out much later will notice that this is a very different format. This is really large, and the production was done to the normal immaculate Studio Proteus uh, setup, and so you've got this great logo, you've got fantastic lettering, and really fairly funny translation throughout.
Is this all of the What's Michael material? Like I got a sense that maybe this is a curation of
Yeah.
like the favorites? Like there's more than this out there?
Oh yeah. So this was a 9 volume series in Japan, like I think nine
Okay.
180-page volumes, and I believe that all of them eventually came out with from Dark Horse like 15 years later. So this
Okay.
was revived as part of Super Manga Blast, which was uh, this anthology that basically the only thing that any of the things had in common with is that they were things that had been canceled prior.
Oh,
So like
okay.
stuff that Studio Protea still had a license for. And so they put all of them out in Super Manga Blast, and then it was collected later. Yeah, I'm not sure how much of this represents 100% of the material at the beginning. I think this is like a curated thing, but the format is really nice. But yeah, so Michael is not one cat; he's every cat, and Michael is an orange tabby. Which, if you know anything about tabby cats, 80% of tabby cats are that are orange are male. So
Oh, okay.
most tabby cats are, or most orange tabby cats are male, and then the female tabby cats have that sort of gray, mottled
Hmm.
thing for the most part. And so um, Michael is essentially like the every cat. And so, at least as presented here, the first one is the artist himself in his studio seeing a cat on his on his
Yeah,
banister.
I really want to know if this is the actual first one because putting it first in the collection suggests that this is a real thing that happened. That was the impetus for him thinking about this story. That's kind of how I read it. And this is a perfect intro to like caveat as well, that I fucking hate cats. Like I just hate cat. I'm allergic to them, like really badly allergic. As soon as I walk into a room and want to avoid a cat, that immediately makes me the one person that the
Yeah,
cat's most interested in.
of course.
And then I just don't like them as animals. Like I am a hardcore dog person. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, yes, that's exactly what you do with a cat. You throw something at it, knock it off of the thing. I always joke with my students that cats belong in bags at the bottom of rivers because, I always have students who love cats. And so I just playfully tell them I hate cats and cats belong in bags at the bottom of rivers. And then that's something we can, spar about all semester. So this is like, yes, you throw cats. And he knocks this cat off and then turns to his studio assistant and is like if a cat fell 6 stories onto concrete, you think it would survive? And like, what? No way. And he kind of looks out and it's pretty obvious that the cat has died and someone's distressed about it. Um, so I wonder, like, did he actually kill a cat and that led to the story, or did he throw something at a cat for real and then go, oh no, I could have knocked that cat off? Like, what was there? There seemed to be a real world seed for this, is my point.
And then the double punchline here is he goes and examines the cat's footprints on the railing and then wipes them off, and then it gets a Golgo 13 close up.
Yeah, and so the artist prayed with all his heart. I'm sorry, I apologize. Just don't come back to haunt me. Let me erase the evidence. So this, at least this collection, and if this isn't the first one, then they've made it seem like this is the impetus for everything else,
Right.
which I thought was well chosen. But I'm curious if that's actually the case or not. So maybe
Yeah.
someone knows.
Yeah. And then
Anyways,
what's presented as the second one gives us an opportunity to see his real strength as a cartoonist. I mean, this is just extraordinary stuff here. This all of the cat movement slinking to the bottom of the uh, panel. Got that Tintin motion there, right at the bottom of the panel border as the ground, and then the pounce, and then the stop in mid pounce, and
yeah.
then the embarrassed cat reaction afterwards.
And like and I think he says like, oh, it's a real cat thing to do, where you're like, when you fuck something up, that you immediately pretend, well, I intended to do that, and just play with the rock. And yeah, all of the cartooning of that is just so good. And the sequence of the cat going from like distraction to distraction, like right here, the bird and then the bug flies by. I mean, that's like pet owner stuff. Like, dogs do that too. I love watching my dogs squirrel. And
Mm-hmm.
I think every pet owner. So even though I hate cats, I really like, it spoke to me as a pet owner who like kind of overly obsessed with my dogs. Anyone who follows my Instagram stories knows that I'm overly obsessed with my dogs, and uh, yeah.
And then
And
we get
then he can do things that a cat actually wouldn't do and make it believable.
yeah, which is really something else. He does the same thing with the expressions too. You know, he'll give a cat like a physically impossible expression that is perfectly communicative. Well, here we go. So then we get our first one that's essentially like cats as people,
Yeah.
uh, where the the joke is essentially like, you know, these people cats are still acting like cats. So this guy's getting interrogated, uh, and the other cats can obviously tell when he's lying because he's got his ears down, and you know when he's upset because his tail's all frizzed out.
Yeah. It's really like it's a that's the other thing I really enjoyed about the book is how many variations he found to make a short story out of. How many, like you always say, well observed. Like it's a well observed thing that like an expert in human behavior would have similar cues about pupil dilation and whatever. But he's
Right.
like, oh well, you know, the hackles go up on a cat, and the ears go down, and it's just so it's funny. Like that's a pretty bad face. That one's pretty bad, but some of them are really great. The jaw on this one here looks kind of funny to me, but this is funny. Really.
What it's really wild if you read his other series that's available in English. You see him using basically the same moves with his cartooning for people.
What's the other work? What else has he done that he's popular for?
It's called Club Nine. It's really fantastic. It was all translated, but only 3 of them came out in collected editions. But
Hmm.
it's about a girl from the country who works in a hostess bar,
Okay.
and
So no animals. That's not like a standard thing for him.
no, and I think that this was probably his, if I'm not mistaken, this was his big breakthrough. And I think
Okay.
it's not a coincidence that he really took off with something that enabled, you know, the animals enabled him to push the expressions much further. But this guy in the tracksuit, I mean, just kills me. So this guy is just so enthusiastic to get his cat to do all of his dog things.
Yeah, well, he's watching someone else play with their dog and have a great time, and he's like, "Oh, I can do that." And I just wrote a note. This is why dogs are better than cats. This is why I like dogs better, because like you go out and you play with them, and they're your buddy, and you know, like Tori's been sick, and the dogs just stay on the bed, like nursing her and taking care of her, and she coughs, and they make sure she's okay, and you know, like they're just, I don't know, they bring me a lot of joy. But then you have this guy like trying to have a good time with his cat, and he just winds up fucking punching it in the head and being like, you suck. And I've just always felt like when you talk about dog people versus cat people, like I've seen, I think it's in that there's a Robert De Niro, the Meet the Fockers movie, and he's talking about how he doesn't trust dog people because they want an easy relationship. And I've always felt the opposite. Like I anytime I've dated someone who's a cat person, I feel like they go out of their way to introduce something difficult in the relationship just because their idea of relationships is that you have to like be working on it. Whereas like I want to be in a relationship where if I have to work on something, both partners are willing, but it mostly is like a dog where you're just happy to see each other and it's like easy, you know. And that's something else I've always associated. So I really like this strip because it plays that out very obviously.
And yeah, and you know, you can tell it's an anthology. You can tell that these are essentially used as like light gags between other heavy things, and then you hit one like this, which is like just slightly less um, sophisticated is not quite the right word, because we do have a woman with 8 breasts there, which I'd say is its own kind of sophisticated.
Well, no,
Uh,
this is like the opposite though. It's to me it's pretty sophisticated because it's the opposite of this one. These are people cats and these are cat people, and so he reversed the kind of like conceit of
mhm.
okay, playing this out like, oh, cats like to have their nose booped, so if you put signs with like a finger out, like people will be attracted to it, and like you have 8 breasts and
I just love the male host of the game show is when he says when so all the girls on this planet have 8 breasts. Wow. Oh wow, of course. I wish Earth was like that.
there's such a weird. again, this episode is just gonna so expose all of my allegiances, but as an ass man, like 8 breasts just sounds like a real hassle to me. Like I don't, there's nothing sexually appealing about that to me. So I don't get like why the boob guys out there would be like, oh my God, I've got 8 of those things to have to juggle. Like, I don't know. It's just uh it's this whole book. I really enjoyed this. I thought, oh, we'll flip through it and I'll have a couple of things. I have so many sticky notes in here.
Well,
Just
look at the dude scratching the communal scratch post. I mean, I just
it's
uh,
hilarious.
it's hard to not. I feel like this just should have been a smash hit, and it got its new lease on life. I mean, it didn't do poorly when it came out again in the 2000s in collected editions, but there was a bigger bookstore penetration then, and
I
I
really
think
feel like if this came out, like if they re-released it again, like in tankobon size, this would
yeah,
absolutely kill it. Um, yeah, because each one of these has something,
yeah,
and really like even this right here, there's like, here's a young pair of lovers, let's just watch and see what they do. And then cats like to hide under things and they have heaters, so it's like that's like a date. But when I was a kid, like playing with the neighborhood girl, like I remember I would always be like like my 5-year-old brain that like probably had a crush on the neighbor girl would be like, let's play like animals, and then you go hide under the bed like it's a den. I don't know if you ever did that, but like it was my 5-year-old brain way of like finding a way to get close to a
yeah,
girl. Like, let's
intimacy,
go
yeah,
hide under the bed and pretend we're lions.
right.
Like that was my 5-year-old way of like trying to get a date, and this is like exactly it right there. And I
Well,
just
I'm gonna have to insist that you read Club Nine, at least the first 3 volumes that are actually. I'll
okay.
I'll send one to you, uh, because you can just see this guy's personality. You can see that Kobayashi just has his eyes open all the time. Yeah, it's interesting that you're noting the human observations here. Yeah, the very next story, essentially the punchline is a human punchline. Um, so yeah, you liked the formal aspect of this one, huh?
Um, what I liked about this one is that I've long thought about scrapbooking as comics, and that's
Mm.
something that's just not been a part of the conversation about comics. I think Linda Barry, I haven't
Oh,
read a lot of her work, but I've seen it. She's like the closest I've seen to someone using scrapbooking conventions.
right.
But really, I think there's something very interesting to be done there with comics, like photo albums, but also like a scrapbook, like where you have the stickers and the icon, because like I
Yeah,
worked in craft stores for so long and they just
right.
aisles full of these stickers. And I always thought it was funny too. Like it's always like your vacation, but there's never the like, hey, I survived cancer sticker pack, but like that's a part of someone's life that could be put into a scrapbook. And then especially in terms of like autobio comics and stuff, I think this one here actually suggests a potential for a type of comic that
Oh yeah.
I barely seen anyone scratch the surface of. So I was really excited about that part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so look at this Michael, baby Michael with his feet up in the air from the previous page. That's another one of those things like what extraordinary detail there with the feet up in the air. So if you feed a baby cat like that, they're used to having to stimulate the mom in order to get milk, and so that's what they do with the kneading.
Yeah.
And it's like that doesn't look like a photo. I mean, he's got some kind of reference going on, but he's kept it in his style, and yet you can tell that, like, I don't know, it's just so well researched.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he really obviously understands how cats move and stuff. Um, yeah. And then you said there's a human punchline to it here.
Yeah, well, because basically this is now the guy closes his scrapbook, Michael's album. He closes up. He says, "Time flies," and he smokes a cigarette. And he looks over, and Michael is so fat that he doesn't want to play. And then his wife comes to the room, and she has had a similar transformation.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know, like there's all of these like young happy couple, but you see her getting heavier. I went back and looked at it, and she does start to get a little heavier in the photos from like
it,
the first one to this one. So that's really great cartooning to me, that it was subtle enough that I didn't catch it, in the
Right.
photos, but when I knew to go look back at it, she's got a pointier chin, and then here she looks a little more busty and thick, and then her
Right.
face softens up. So he's setting up the punchline in a subtle way that you may not notice, but then you can go back and be like, yeah, he knew what he was doing, and
Right. Well,
that's
and you can
masterful.
tell this is the guy's mental process. You can see his mental process. That's the
Hmm.
interesting thing to me. He's exhaling the smoke, the certain way that he's sitting and the way that he's sort of regarding it while trying to get the cat to play. It's not even necessarily like, depressed or, like, what have I done? You know what I mean? It's just like, this is the fact. And in fact, this is the narrator says at the end, this life, the life of an average Joe, it's simple, but it's good. You
Yeah,
know?
he doesn't seem like resigned to it.
No,
It isn't the right word. Like there's a
just
little
noting
bit
it.
of acceptance of some
Right.
sort, but not resignation, and like has actually found contentment in it, and
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like, and he's like realizing, like, my wife and my cat are both very comfortable. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and
I
that's
don't know.
what I'm saying. Like I just love so much going and sitting on the couch, and like the dog comes and lays on me, and that's my happiest part of every day, is like
Yeah.
the stupid lazy part where my dog, who just went and ate shit and her breath smells like it, is like cuddling up against me and looking at me with like the most joy I've ever seen of any creature. And like, Tori's like out of commission, can't even barely move, laying on a air mattress in the living room. But when I go at the end of the day and just get on the air mattress and we watch some old fights and cuddle the dogs, that's,
Yeah.
there's a lot of contentment there.
Right.
Even though it's not a great situation, I've
Right.
like, she's sick and the dogs smell like poop, but I'm happy.
Yeah. So this one we've got the this is a character who comes back, an actual recurring character, by the way. It's
Okay.
the cat loving yakuza. Uh,
Which
the
is funny, and he mentions that he's from the Kodansha gang, and so that
right.
made me wonder if Kodansha, if this was published by
I'm
Kodansha, and
pretty sure.
if it's referring to the publisher, or if Kodansha is just like a common enough name in
Well, not
Japan.
that common. I don't think he'd accidentally refer to one of the three biggest publishers. I'm pretty sure this is a Kodansha. Let's see. Originally serialized in Comic Morning and published in 1985 by Kodansha Limited. Yeah.
Okay, so he's
There
kind
you
of
go.
taking a pot shot at his editors or something
Right.
there. But I love this Yakuza guy in his like cat love pajamas.
Right. It just says cat love with this goofy looking things, and the face of the cat, him and the cat in
Like
the
they
video
getting
together.
caught and they're like, oh no. And then you get that Gogo 13 zoom again
Right.
that you talked about. Like that's a common one. This one I just really like, and I wonder if this was in his original, because like I know the Japanese really love the rock and, like a lot of those Manbin episodes that I watch, they really like classic rock and roll, Led Zeppelin and all
Hmm.
that stuff. And so this is, the cats names are Neil, Getty, and Alex, which is the three guys from Rush, right?
Right.
And I was wondering if that was in the original, or if there was just some other rock stars that the cats names were, and then when it got translated, that they
Yeah.
they said, okay, we're
Oh,
gonna
I bet.
be
Yeah, I'm not
Rush.
sure. That's a good question. Did you see that? Well, will you go back to that first panel in the chapter just for a second? Did you notice the panel border at the bottom there blipping out like a TV screen?
Oh, this right here?
Yeah,
No, I didn't notice that.
that's like the image. If you turn off a CRT, an old tube monitor, the image flattens and compresses to the center as the tube loses power, and
Oh,
it
interesting.
it looks exactly like that panel border at the bottom. It didn't occur to me until right now that she just turned off her TV or something, or maybe
I
that's just
Oh,
closing
okay.
up.
I didn't. I grew up without a TV, so that would
Right.
be totally beyond me. It's weird that her feet are cut off and that it's not doing the Moebius AirJ thing where she's standing on the border.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's just the
It's
border
so
itself.
close to that. But anyways, yeah, that story, I think that was the thing that stood out to me most, is that the cats are named after the guys in Rush. And so
Well,
I just assumed that he really likes Rush.
The
Because
acting in this one is quite amazing too. So basically, she's falling asleep and she's a sucker, and so she lets the cat sleep in the same room as her, and they continually wake her up. But the one part that just kills me in that one is the let's see, it's at the last panel that has the cat massage attack, or am I thinking of a different?
no, that's like,
Oh,
I
that's
think
later.
that's a different
Okay,
story.
gotcha.
Um,
Oh yeah, she just gives up and wakes up and feeds
this
him.
is the one about them chasing the bugs, which is,
Right.
this is why I'm saying it's a cat lover, dog lover, whatever, pet owner who's dumb enough to let pets on the bed, which I just said I am. Like, this will
Right.
happen, and they'll knock over your lamp, and they're gonna catch. My dogs are really good at catching flies, and they really like it. So yeah, this book about a cat was surprisingly familiar to me. Michael's Secret. I didn't note anything in this one.
Yeah, it's just a series of escalating situations where the guy does something that's cat friendly and the cat comes up near him, and then he does something mean and the cat runs away.
Yeah, he's gonna be. Here's the TV thing again, but he's on a TV,
Right.
so that makes sense. That's actually probably correct that that's what he's doing, because
Oh,
he
interesting. Yeah,
is.
you're right. The line is present underneath the TV. Huh.
I don't. We'll have to see if that's at the beginning of every story, if that's just kind of like a opening and closing convention that he picked, like a symbol of opening and closing. It'd be
Yeah.
interesting if that convention showed up in other manga. If people are aware of that as a convention, like during the 70s and 80s when those
Yeah.
type of TVs were out, just as a symbol that they came up with, that would be interesting to note.
I feel like maybe I've seen something like that in a Adachi manga, but I'll have to look
Yeah,
back
it,
and
it feels
back
like I've seen this before as a convention in manga, and I wonder if it's a symbol they developed for opening and closing based on their familiarity with that effect from the
yeah.
TV. That would be an interesting piece of like visual etymology, I guess.
Right. So here's the sort of backwards phenomenon that you were describing. As if you're a person who doesn't like cats, you don't look at them, and so the cats feel that you're the safest person to come to. So reverse of that, this is the guy who loves cats and therefore is terrible with them. Uh, so Michael's hiding from this guy continually, and this guy's face popping up.
And he hates it. Yeah, and that's one of the things I hate about cats is like the person that wants to play with the cat, there's totally disinterested in, and the person that wants nothing to do with them, they're like rubbing against their leg and squirting pheromones all over them. It's like a dog. If you sit down and you're like, "Come here, puppy," most dogs are gonna be like, "You like dogs? You're a dog person? Great, let's play." And that's a much more straightforward relationship to me, and I like straightforward things.
You get an idea of some of the expressive lettering at the top of the page here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who did the lettering for this, but a typical very high performance, of the Studio Proteus team.
Look at these cats in the box with their own poop too. That's
Oh,
gross.
it's Tom Orzakowski did the
Okay,
lettering.
that makes
So
sense.
yeah.
Why are those cats? Why haven't they cleaned the poop out of that box? That's gross. I didn't make any notes on that one. This
Oh,
one I didn't make any notes on either, but it's funny.
so
Just
funny.
the guy with the mask on.
It's expressionless Godzilla face, which Kobayashi makes it expression full just by the rotation of it.
Like that panel right there is
Yeah.
so expressive. Yeah, these like, and the just messing with the cat. Like that's another pet owner thing, right? It's just fun to mess with your animals. And I don't know about cats, but my dogs at least. Well, the one of them, Bucha, she really likes to be messed with. That's like
Oh,
we're playing. Cammy doesn't like it so much.
will you go back one page? Just one of my favorite expressions in this entire book is on the right hand side there, on the upper right. His terrified relief.
Yeah,
at
he's like
realizing it's a person inside of the Godzilla.
scared but also happy. Like, oh my God, it's my master. Yeah.
That combination of expressions is so awesome, unusual.
Messing
We
with
get
the fly.
Yeah, we get another one that shows off his body language command here.
This is the
Uh,
one you're talking about the cats. The
yeah, so
cats.
it's a
The,
continuation of the cat lady, and I think the cat lady comes back later. But yeah, well known to all cat owners, it's the horror of the dreaded multi-cat massage attack.
and I have seen cats do that where they just sit and they paw. Our dog Bucha, our chocolate lab, what she does is she comes up and like will crush her head down on us, like, and she somehow can leverage like the weight of a black hole. Even though she only weighs like 65 pounds, she can apply the force of a black hole, and she'll just come and like crush us with her head like Juggernaut, when she wants to cuddle and wake us up. Here's a cat butthole. There you go. There's one too, that little just like asterisk asterisk on the cat hole. Oh, I didn't even note this. We actually get a breast. They pull her clothes open. I feel like I skipped this page on accident or something. I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't
that's
know.
kind of unfortunate because you limit your market with that one cartoon. Like this book is otherwise sellable to like an 8-year-old.
Right. I wouldn't be well, yeah, and it's definitely like just a convention difference, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Dark Horse one doesn't include that strip or has some kind of paste up or something. Uh,
Yeah, that's unfortunate because Americans are so freaky about something so
right.
stupid like a nipple that would actually
Puritanical. Yeah.
limit your market. Um, what did I wrote yup on there. I was agreeing with something that the cats are doing. I don't know. I don't know what I wrote
Just
that on there for.
all of them having I always think about that face right there as Kobayashi face with the dropped jaw and the jowls coming out to the side, because
This.
he'll use that. I mean, he uses that with his human people too, and it's very distinctive. I'm not saying that that's not impossible to do. You just, I think normally when you do a drop jaw in reality, you don't typically, you know,
Make it
expand.
wider than the rest of the head.
Exactly, yeah.
It
I mean,
works
you
though.
can
Oh,
like.
I know what I wrote yep on. This whole story is just about animals that are hungry and they're reliant on you for food, and
Right.
you're just going about like I wake up at different times depending on what my obligations are for the day, but no matter when I wake up, like the first thing I have to do is let the dogs out and then feed them. They run outside, and then they, before they even pee, they run back in because they know I'm going to feed them. And if I don't feed them, then they just, this like swarm of animals around, it's like koi fish swimming around your feet while you're trying to do things until they get fed, was also very like, these cats are just like, come on lady, like we're hungry, we rely on you. And she's
and
having some conversation with a friend about, you know, a breakup or something.
and them watching her while she's got the bag of ginger snaps.
Oh yeah, like, and if they're in that state and you start eating something,
Right.
which is like when I come home from work and it's food time and I'm like, no, dad eats first, but then they're just like in my face. Uh, and we've got a sick cat, also familiar how much they hate going to the vet, and they know it. They know the route to the vet.
This shot, she gives him the shot by having his paw come across.
Yeah.
Uh,
And this is really like each one of these stories has something worth talking about in it, which usually something like this, there's hit and miss ones for me.
right.
Like pretty much every story hits. Here's another thing I noticed. The cat belongs to this American guy who works at my company, a Mr. Fred Rickshot.
Right. A little nod to Fred Shot, I think.
Yeah, but I wonder if that was like, is he just putting that in there? Because I'm assuming Fred Shot translated this, or is
N-
this
no,
Rip
no,
Torn?
but I think it's just a nod to their, to their contemporaries. This is Dana Lewis and Torrin
Or
Smith.
not
So
Rip Torn, Torn Smith. What am I saying? Rip Torn, Torn Smith.
yeah, so I think Dana Lewis did the translation and Torrin Smith did the text adaptation, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I'm sure this is just they had a random name there that didn't mean anything, and so they inserted their colleague's name there instead.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's every time I see that, the guys from Rush, I wonder how much is the translator and how much is the artist. Um,
you, I mean, this is a it reads so well, and when you get this part, so these people have taken a cat home, and they have the tragic, um, the cat doesn't Michael doesn't speak Japanese.
which is
Huh?
another one of those super well observed things. Like the cat
Right.
grew up in America, his owners speak to him in English. So he's like an English speaking cat. And I've never thought about that, but animals do
Right.
speak a language, right? They've learned English or Japanese. That's another really well observed. And then the English, when they try and speak English, they're kamuhiru,
They give
kamu maikaru, you know.
yeah, they give it phonetically, and maybe your pronunciation isn't so good. You think? And she like, come here, my curl. Come here. So she's like saying it more carefully, and then he responds, and they're just like, "Yes, we've done it."
Yeah, and then oh yay baby, you know, in English. And you know, this is one of these things that like this is 100% well observed and real and accurate. And I feel like you couldn't make a strip like this today because that phonetic translation of an accent
Sure.
would be seen as like racist.
Yeah, even though
But
it's written by a
it's
Japanese guy, and you know, uh,
and it's accurate. Like
yeah,
there
it's
people have
perfectly.
accents and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with like representing an accent, especially. And then the cat goes and shits on the TV.
Right. It's,
um
maybe it must have been my grammar.
yeah, it's funny. It's a hilarious story and really smart and well written, and the translation of it's fantastic. um you know, on the translation, I'm always curious like how he did that phonetic thing
Mhm.
in the Japanese, or if they just wrote English in the Japanese. You know, I'm always curious about how that showed up, but I
It's
love
so
this
funny,
one.
and their change is so significant. I would bet that it's in English, written out phonetically in English in Japanese as well.
That would make sense. Yeah.
That would be my guess. But
Because all the humor comes from that.
yeah.
So it's so essential. And then this one here is like my absolute nightmare of a business, like a business that I would at like under no amount of duress or payment would I visit this business. Um, a coffee shop with cats all over the place. I don't drink coffee. I hate being in Starbucks, and then you throw cats all over the place for an allergy attack, and this is just my nightmare. Um, but I love that it's all these tough Yakuza guys that come and visit, and then here you have your little effect that you noticed
Oh yeah,
again.
there
So
we
that
go.
just seems to be an opening or closing effect for him in a
Right.
lot of these stories. Not in all of them.
So some place where another cartoonist might just give no panel border, he's giving a bounded panel border for the sake of the image, and then trimming it off in a compression CRT tube image going away kind of way.
Yeah, I
Very interesting.
really like if people that watch this, if anyone else has other examples of this as like a visual
Yeah.
trope in manga, I'd be really interested in that because I really feel like I've seen that a lot before.
Yeah, I'm gonna
But
dig.
then I would never be able, like if I had to go find it, I would probably not find any, you know.
Right.
Um,
I'm gonna dig around in my Adachi stuff and see if I can find it.
you go.
So I managed to convince you to read a book about a cat.
I've read another book about a cat that this one made me think of that I would like to hype up, which is Carl Stevens' Penny.
Oh yeah.
Which is this reminded me a lot of it because it's the same like well observed, like really believable kind of cat behaviors that, you know, he obviously lives with this cat, and Carl's such a great like realist,
Right.
that you know, that kind of transfers over even more. And then similarly funny, I don't know if you've read that one or not, but the Penny character in Carl's book is always like having these really deep existential thoughts. You know,
Mhm.
he's like mentally kind of projecting human thoughts into the cats in a way that's really funny. So I would highly, if you read this and enjoyed this, get Penny. And if you've read Penny and don't have
Yeah.
this and enjoyed Penny, get this. They're both highly recommended books.
Yeah, and so I was alluding to it before, but in the original format, they had two
Ah,
volumes. These are still very easy to pick up. This is Eclipse, like I was saying, and this is a large format, American comic size format. And then many years later, Dark Horse and Studio Proteus put out smaller paperbacks of the remainder of the series. I've read a handful of those, and as far as I can tell, he maintains the quality throughout the series. But would love at some point to talk about this. But if you guys like What's Michael, pick up Club 9. There's 3 volumes of Club 9 available in this format, and then the last 2 volumes came out in that anthology book, Super Manga Blast. But it's a really fun book, and you can just see, just from the character's face there on the cover, that his cartooning chops are, basically in the still in the same kind of effect, and basically, I'd be curious to see what your reaction to it is, Carson. I know a few people that I've shown this one to were immediately turned off by he uses in the translation too, uses the phonetic dialect a lot because the character is coming from the countryside. And so they were looking for a way to represent, she's like, basically what it boils down to is she's the wise but ignorant seeming country innocent. And they were looking for a way to represent the dialect that she has in Japanese in English. And so they give her a Southern accent, which makes sense from a sort of cross-cultural kind of position. But I think it irritated some people who were,
because it's like, why is this Japanese woman being like, hey y'all?
Exactly right. Yeah. But to me, it's like you've got an analog. You lean on the analog that you have to make it comprehensible, But
I don't know what else you could do there other than that.
It's got some very interesting stuff, like, for instance, a horny ghost.
Oh, okay. That's enough to sell me on it right there.
That haunts her apartment.
Are they episodic like the What's Michael, or
no? It's a real continuous story, and it's really something else. And
I'll have to check that out.
She moves to the city and accidentally starts working as a hostess and doesn't realize what that job entails. But basically is totally innocent of any of the things that you might expect from somebody working at a host club, and has to sort of learn how to be tactful, because she just is very direct, like, oh, you're too old for me, honey. Like, I got a boyfriend.
It sounds good. And I mean, like, this is a statement about the quality of his work. Is I want more of it. Like I said, I got done with this and I was like, this feels like there's more, and I want to see more, which is very strange that I want to read more comics about a cat. So that's how good it is that it made me want to, like, where's the rest of this? There has to be more of this. And similar, like, okay, then he's that good of a cartoonist and that good of a writer. I think he's a really great writer, which is the main thing behind all these stories that makes them work, besides his wonderful cartooning. So then anything else he's done, I want to see for sure.
What a weird fallen world that we live in, where Garfield is universally known, and what's Michael is still dollar bin fodder.
We all grew up with Garfield, so I'm sure in Japan this is probably pretty ubiquitous, and Garfield is more. I could be wrong, but I'm assuming that across different cultures there's gonna be like a famous cat. It wouldn't, because I feel like I've seen the little waving cat statue thing. Mm-hmm. Like they have one of those in here somewhere.
Well, that's a cross-country prosperity animal. So the idea is that the cat with its hand out is going to draw you in to the store. It's like a begging cat as a symbol of commerce.
But I feel like this plays into that in a way where this character of Michael's probably pretty ubiquitous in Japan.
Yeah,
I mean, sure. Maybe not, but I don't know. And for some reason, like, I don't associate. Well, I guess the Walking Man is a guy with his dog. Mm-hmm. But I feel like Japan's more likely to have cat cafes, and they seem to, like, as a culture, kind of have this regard for cats.
Well, there might be a kind of practical aspect to that too, where you've got an island with a very large population, and the areas, especially like the urban areas, are so tight. If you're going to live in a one-room apartment, you probably don't want a big dog in there.
Yeah, and this is, again, just I've been getting in trouble for making these generalized statements on videos, but it's just, I'm just saying my exposure to the culture so far, the impression that I get is that cats are more central in Japan than dogs. But then there's The Walking Man, which is all about a dude with his dog. So I know people have dogs over there, but there just seems like cats. I mean, maybe it's just, what I've encountered.
Yeah. And we don't know for sure, but what I do know is that I would love to read more of his stuff in English at some point. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll be seeking these out. What I can in print, and what I can't, I'm gonna steal off the internet.
Don't
Unless someone translates it and prints it, then I'll pay for it.
You've admitted to a crime, sir. Please submit to your digital handcuffs.
I will. Right. I will read some scanlations, but not download them.
But officer, I just witnessed the crime.
Yeah, no, I didn't scan it. I didn't make money off of it. I just looked at a website that was publicly available. If you don't want people to do that, take the website down.
Officer.
All right, before I get myself in any further trouble by making gross generalizations and admitting to crimes, thanks for following along. We highly recommend these books.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys.
Make sure to like, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell.